Hello, my fellow Glamazon. Are you on a budget but still want to add some glam to your home? Excellent. Then we are already friends. I have 9 amazing mirrored wall decor ideas that will make your home look like $1,000,000 without breaking the bank, because most of the supplies are from your local dollar store. From dazzling sunburst mirrors to chic geometric designs, there are plenty of options for you to choose from. How about we kick things off with a gorgeous project that's as easy to complete as it is stunning.
Something about this flower fills me with an emotion I don't really understand. Something about this flower fills me with an emotion I don't really understand.
Originally, I did this mirror as part of the Look for Less challenge, and the mirror that I was duping was this one from Bed Bath & Beyond. However, I later decided that I preferred it in straight gold, but don't worry, I'll show you the transformation at the end of the video. To start with, we're going to be cutting some squares. There are a couple ways you can do this. You can just go ahead and do this using a ruler and a Sharpie or a pen. I'm using a silver Sharpie because I'm working on black poster board. Or you can use something to cut for you, like I have a trimmer that I use, and I will link it down in the description. I bought mine at Walmart. You can get these on Amazon. They're fairly inexpensive. This thing has been a game changer for me. I bought it for a project I did recently, which I will link up in the top, and I am finding I'm using it all the time. It's awesome. It's technically a paper trimmer, so it's got a slide cutter on it as opposed to like a guillotine style, the old school paper cutters. Yeah, my recommendation is that it's just much easier to use a paper cutter of some sort to do this, but no worries, you can always kick it old school with a pen and a ruler. Okay. So what I did for mine was I cut the poster board so it fit perfectly within the paper cutter, and then I just fed it through, and for this piece I was cutting them in 5-inch pieces, so I just fed them through, and what I actually did was I pre-marked it for 5-inch intervals, and then I just cut them off at 5 inches. In actual fact, I kind of went about this backwards. The better way to do this would have been to feed it from the top, because there's measurements marked on the body of the cutter, and then just hit the 5 or 4 or 3-inch mark and just whip them off. So in the end, you're going to end up with 24 pieces each of 5-inch squares, 4-inch squares, and 3-inch squares. This number might vary slightly depending on how tightly you glue them together. So 4-inch square, and I find it works best if you use like something to put a curve in it, so either that way or that way, just to make it a little bit easier to bend so you don't get creases in it. And then I also found it works better if you just get it all the way where you want it. So if you're going to do it like this, and for me, because I'm right-handed, I keep it folded this way so I can get the glue in from that side, and then just put a little bit of glue in there. You don't need a ton, and you don't need to do it all the way down. So just enough to attach it. And try not to burn yourself, because this is all going to be covered up anyway. So you don't have to worry about getting a perfect cone. So there you go. So at this point, you should have your foam core circle cut out for the base, as well as 3 sets of 24 cones, each in 5-inch, 4-inch, and 3-inch, that being the size of the original squares. So starting with the largest 5-inch cones, you're going to attach them to the outside edge of the circle using hot glue. So the way that I did this was to do a line of glue on the outside edge of the circle, and then attach the wider end of the cone, and also glue down the point of the cone. I would suggest the better way to do this is to apply the glue not to the exterior of the backing circle, but to the back of the cone, because I found in the end you could see little globs of glue on the bits of the circle that you could see. So instead I would just put one line on the fat end of the cone and a little dab on the pointy end of the cone, and then just apply them that way. Try to keep them as even as possible, although you'll notice in mine it's not completely even lined up to my mark for my mirror, but that's okay, I managed to work it out in the end. The first level is now completed, and we're going to get to work on the second level. For this level, you're going to use your 4-inch cones, and what I did with the glue here, I just did like a little squiggle, as you can see here, and then you just hold it in between the 2 cones and then just press it for a second until it dries. It's nice and warm, and then just keep working your way around until you're completed your second level. Lastly, we'll be doing the final level using the 3-inch cones. I highly suggest that before you start placing any cones that you take the exterior portion of your mirror frame and put it in place before you put the cones in. This way you won't end up trying to jam it in there afterwards because it won't fit. So don't glue it in place, just place it there because you're going to take it out and paint it later. With this level, I pre-placed all the cones just to make sure that I got a nice finished edge, and then I just went back in and lifted them one by one and glued them into place. Here's the finished first level, second level, and the final third level. Now it's time to add paint, and we will be using Rust-Oleum metallic finish in gold. In order to achieve a similar look to the original version, I've used a second paint finish, and I've used the Rust-Oleum Hammered Bronze. Now I'm not spraying this on in a full spray like I did with the gold. I'm actually just lightly drizzling it, so it's just getting like little drips of it on top of the gold. You need to make sure with this paint that you shake it really, really well, or it tends to get watery. In order to achieve this finish, you want to do very light passes with minimum pressure on the spray nozzle. But if you make a mistake, don't worry about it because it's paint and you can always paint over it again. So here is a close-up of what the sort of speckled finish looks like, and this I think looks much more like an actual metal finish, similar to the original version. So as I mentioned earlier, my cones were not all completely aligned so that I had a little bit of a wider gap on one side than the other side of the mirror frame. So what I decided to do to remedy that situation is I just took this cording. It's just dollar store cording. It's pretty cheap and doesn't matter what color because we're going to paint it. And I just hot glue it all the way around the edge of the mirror frame. And the best way to do this to get a really nice, clean, smooth finish is to just glue a little section at a time and kind of stretch it a little bit so you don't get any lumps or bumps in it, and it ends up looking basically like it's a part of the mirror. So here's what it looks like when it's all completed, and I just need to take it outside now and give it the same paint finish as the rest of the project. So the mirror has been replaced into the back of the frame. So the mirror's done in the same finish. So if you get this seam right, you won't really even be able to see it, because that's the side, and it's like you can't really see. Once it's all done, you can't really see it's there. We are going to glue this into place in here. Last bit is to add a hanger. I have a little picture hanging kit. It has lots of these things in it, so here's the finished product all hung up in the hallway, in my entranceway. It's not exactly the same as the Bed Bath & Beyond mirror, but I still think it's a pretty good dupe for $6. I personally preferred it when it was the solid gold color. I might actually go back and just paint it the gold, but I did want to provide you with a more of a metal look finish, so you can do yours whichever way makes you happy. As I mentioned at the start of the video, I did repaint the entire mirror in just straight gold. And then I added some rhinestones. I'm just using the smaller version from these rhinestones. So I'm just adding a little bit of hot glue onto the back of the rhinestones. Although they're adhesive, they do have a tendency to fall off over time. And then I'm just attaching all the same size rhinestones to all of the peaks of all of the cones all the way around the mirror. I think it looks much more glamorous in this version. So here are the things you're going to need to complete this project. A round mirror, this one's from Dollar Tree. Package of 7.5-inch zip ties. This one's empty because I already used them, and it's from Dollarama. You can get these at the Dollar Tree. A package of 14-inch zip ties. These ones are from my shed. You can also get these at Dollar Tree. A package of assorted size rhinestones. These ones are from Dollarama, and I don't think they have these at Dollar Tree, but I'm pretty sure you can get them at Walmart. Another package of smaller size adhesive rhinestones. E6000 hot glue gun. Rust-Oleum Metallics Bright Reflective Finish in silver. And then the other things you're going to need is a little bit of either cardboard or poster board for the backing. And that's it. So to start, trace around your mirror onto your cardboard or foam core if that's what you're using. Then you're going to pop out the mirror portion and just leave the frame. And you're going to use the interior section of that and do a second circle inside of your existing circle. Then you're going to want to do one more circle of the same size in a different location because we're going to cut this out and glue it on top of the other one. So now you're going to want to glue the two circles together, centering the smaller one inside the larger one, and use hot glue to do this. And this is going to be our base for the mirror. So take one of your 7.5-inch zip ties and cinch it together like you normally would, just clicking it into the very first or second notch. So you just want one click. And then you're going to take your little snippers and you're going to snip the tail end off. And then you're going to fold it together so that you have one end pointed, and you're going to take a little tiny pair of pliers and you're going to pinch that end closed so you got a bit of a crease there. I tucked it back into the area that I cut it out of in the cardboard so that I would have a level surface when I was applying the zip ties. So we're going to glue all the zip ties onto the cardboard. So the center circle is, you want to push it tight up against the center circle, and you want to have the connection end facing in. Once all the zip ties were in place and adhered, I went back around a second time with my hot glue gun just to make sure everything was really stuck down. Okay, so now we're going to take the 14-inch zip ties. I give it a little squeeze again before I put them in, and then you're going to glue it in between the 7.5-inch ties, connection end down, same as you did with the other ones. And you're just going to slide it in there, and you're going to continue on that way until you're done all the way around. I use the little wooden stick so I don't burn myself too badly with hot glue. So once all the zip ties are glued into place, you're going to pop it out from the cardboard support, though I highly suggest you run a butter knife underneath all the zip ties first to make sure that none of them are stuck onto the cardboard, because as you can see, I had a little issue with mine, but no worries, I glued them back in place. I hot glued everything together, and then after it was all held in place by hot glue, I went back around and gave it a coat of E6000, and then I just left it to dry overnight, and now it is pretty sturdy. I wouldn't like play frisbee with it or anything, but it's pretty sturdy. Like, it's not wiggling around at all. And then once we get the gems on here, that's going to hold that together even better. So there you go. Here is going to be covered by the mirror, so the mirror will sit on top of that. So these pieces here will be covered by gems. So there, there, there. We're also going to put little gems here and here. So these are the gems that I'm going to be using. We have one that's open. I'm going to use that one up. And we're going to put these on with hot glue. So all of this is stuck together with hot glue and E6000. So they're actually adhesive, but we're going to just glue them with hot glue anyway to make sure they stay. Yeah, just clean up a little bit before you put your gems on. Okay guys, so here is my finished mirror hanging on the wall in my entranceway. I think it turned out pretty good. It looks like metal and it's made from zip ties, so pretty cool. It's not exactly the same as the one that I used for my inspiration. I had to change my design up a little bit because of the zip ties and how I connected them together. But it's pretty cool for 2 packs of $1.25 zip ties from the dollar store and some gems and a mirror. This is a Dollar Tree deviled egg serving tray. I gave it a coat of Rust-Oleum Metallic in gold. I'm using non-adhesive bling wrap. I cut 2 rows wide. And I made a point of cutting off the excess bits of string along the edge. Then when I cut on the other side, I cut very close to the rhinestones, and that way you don't get those extra strings. I used E6000 to attach the bling wrap, and I just did a small amount of glue on the top and bottom sections of the egg holders. Found it worked easier to pre-cut all the bits of bling and then to just glue a bunch of them and put them down all at once. I made up a mixture of Mod Podge and Walmart chunky silver glitter. You could do this step with just the Mod Podge. This just helps to make your glitter a little bit thicker and more dense. I used a small artist's brush to apply the Mod Podge mixture to the areas in between the egg shapes. And then I gave it a good thick coating of the silver glitter and let it dry. Note that I've left the outermost edge free of the Mod Podge mixture because I'm going to do a different application to this area later. Once all of the glitter was dry, I shook off any excess and then I went over and applied a top coat of Mod Podge to seal all the glitter so it doesn't fall off. As you can see, once the Mod Podge is dry, it's clear and you can't even tell that it's got a top coat. These tiny mirror tiles are from Dollarama, and I'm going to use these for the outside edge. So it works easiest if you just fold them over and then cut them and peel the backing and apply. After applying a few rows, I found the best way to do this is to peel the backing as you press it down and curve it up to the edge, and that gives you the best application. So this is what happens at my house pretty much every time I put something down on the floor. So I actually had put this piece of paper down so that I could shoot some video, and who shows up and lays down right on top of it? This is my baby Sage. But that's okay, because she's the cutest dog in the world, at least in my world. It's okay, she can act as my little Price is Right helper. So this is a 16-inch serving plate that I picked up at Dollarama. I had a different one originally, but this one's nice and large. What do you think, Mouse? Originally, I was planning on placing the egg mirror on the back of the plate, but then I changed my mind and I decided that it worked better on the front. I painted both sides gold because if it is on the wall and it's facing out, you're going to see the back. So you want to paint both sides gold, but you really only need to paint around the edges. I added another row of the mirror tile around the outside edge of the bottom section and applied it the same way as I did with the outside edge. If you end up with a small gap, you can cut these mirror tiles using snippers, but be careful because they can be quite sharp. So this is the back side of my mirror, and I'm going to be putting it down face up with the plate face up. So I'm going to give it a coat of E6000 around the edges and then glue it in place and let it dry overnight. I'm using this 5-inch Dollar Tree mirror, and I'm just going to remove these little felt pads so it doesn't sit up. I'm using this little paint scraper, which works really well because it doesn't scratch up the backing. And it's also a good idea to get rid of that label because quite often your glue will stick to the label, but your label will come off. So the final piece is to attach the mirror, and as you can see, it is pretty much a perfect fit. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and please consider subscribing to my channel. Hey guys, so here is the thing that you want to do before you start. So when you get your feathers, you see how that some of them go in one direction. So this is the top edge of the feather. This is the bottom where it's more raised. So this one is curving in one direction. And this one is curving in the other direction. So making sure that you're like, see the bottom is like more. So what you want to do before you start is I would go through the feathers and split them out into two piles, so that what you're going to do is when you put them on, you're going to do your first layer with all the feathers going in one direction, and then your next layer, the feathers go in a different direction, and then for the next layer, these ones I went with more of a straight one. So that's what you want to do to keep it looking more perfect. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is decide how large you want your finished piece to be. My circle here is 25.5 inches. I'm not sure why I chose that size, but that's what size it is. And you can just make your circle using a piece of string, a Sharpie, and I've got mine plunked into the middle using a screwdriver. So this is a metal serving tray. It worked pretty well, except for the only thing I would caution you maybe to do is find something that's similar shape and size, but maybe a bit stiffer. Probably a hard plastic serving tray would work well. I did spray paint this white just in case you see any bits through the feathers. I just used Rust-Oleum paint and primer in white. And then I just measured out to the center of the serving tray and I jammed my screwdriver through it. And then I just put it through the same hole that I had used when I did the circle in the first place. And then I just used painter's tape. You could use painter's tape or masking tape just to hold it into place. And then we're going to take the screwdriver out and then it's going to be nicely centered in our larger circle. Okay, now comes the fun part. So now we get to start gluing on our feathers, and you should already have them split into 1 to 3 groups depending on which direction they curve in, so you don't have to fuss around looking for the right direction. Just grab your feathers and glue them on. Okay, so here's the important part. When you're gluing your feathers down, don't really pay attention to where the quill end of the feather is going. The whole purpose of drawing that outer circle is so that you can use that as your guide to keep all your feather edges lined up to that circle. And I used hot glue to glue these on, and you can either like put a line of glue and attach them. I found it was easier just to put a little bit of glue. It actually looks like I'm gluing it onto the quill, but I'm gluing it just below the quill and then tucking the quill. And I'm using the hot glue gun to tap it down so I don't burn my fingers. And from here, you just work your way around until you get all the way through the first layer of feathers on the outer edge. So this is the second layer, and for this one I actually laid all the feathers out in advance and then just glued them down so I have them kind of where I wanted them. And you want to do the same as you did with the first layer in that you want to pay attention to the outside edge. So keeping an equal distance between the 2 layers of feathers on the outside edge. And then for the third layer, which is I only did 3 layers, you could do more if you wanted to. I just took a bunch of the shorter feathers that were pretty much straight, and then I did that layer using those feathers. So once all the feathers are attached and everything's nicely held in place, you're going to need something to support the mirror. So I actually used a lid from a pill bottle. which probably would have worked okay. The issue that I had, which I mentioned earlier, was that the serving tray that I used was quite flimsy, and so it was more flexible than I wanted it to be, but no worries, it worked in the end. So then you're going to center your mirror. So you're going to put down some, I used both a combination of both E6000 and hot glue, and you're going to center your mirror measuring to the outside edge, because it doesn't matter if it's centered on the platter as long as it's centered to the outside edge. And the last piece is to add a little bit of decorative trim if you want. You could leave it plain if you like. So this is just some silver cord that I got from the dollar store, Dollarama. And it came in silver and gold, and I chose silver. And I taped up, we want to tape up the end if it's anything like this kind of cord where it tends to unravel, and then tuck it underneath the mirror because you'll have a little bit of space under the mirror's raised up a bit. So you're going to tuck that piece that's taped up underneath the mirror, and then you're basically going to glue it kind of to the edge of the mirror. And because you've got that nice round mirror, it's going to keep your trim nice and round as well. So the final piece is we need to hang it by something. So all I did, because this is a very kind of flimsy, for lack of a better word, serving tray, I just punched a hole in either side with a pair of sharp scissors. And then I just took a little piece of ribbon and I just tied the ribbon onto either edge. And that way it's not going to come undone. You're going to need a Dollar Tree mirror and various sizes of dowels. 4 at 8 inches, 4 at 10 inches, 4 at 12 inches, 2 at 16 inches, and 2 pieces at 5.5. Most of these supplies were purchased from the dollar store. However, I did go to the hardware store and purchase 2 24-inch long dowels to cut down to 16 inches. You can start off with a package of Dollar Tree 12-inch dowels and then cut them down to size using a pair of miter shears. If you end up with a bit of a rough edge, I just use a sanding block and sand it down. I've used these Dollar Tree wooden planks as my starting point. Starting with my 2 16-inch long dowels and my wooden plank, I'm using my T-square to make sure that they're perfectly centered. Once I had them properly centered, I used wood glue and let them dry overnight. Next, I added on 5.5-inch long dowel pieces to either side so that the whole piece measures 16 inches in both directions. The reason that I did this, as opposed to adding 2 more 16-inch long dowels, was because this allowed the piece to remain flat. Next, I'm going to be adding the innermost square using my 4 12-inch long dowels. First, I measured 3 3/4 inches from each end of the 12-inch dowel and marked it with a pencil. I also marked off 2 inches from each end of the 16-inch long dowels. Using the marks on both sets of dowels, use them to align the 2 marks, placing all of your 4 12-inch dowels to make a perfect square with the ends almost touching but not quite, and then glue them into place using wood glue and let dry overnight. Next, we're going to add our 10-inch and 8-inch dowels to the ends of the mirror frame. You might find it easiest to start on the end and work your way in, or start in the middle. I've pre-marked the lines on both of my dowels, in 2.5 inches on the 10-inch dowels and in 1.5 inches on the 8-inch dowels from the ends. The distance in between the 3 dowels is 3/4 inch. I used wood glue to glue these and let it dry overnight. All done, and gold. Mirror before and after. You can remove the mirror to paint the frame, or you can tape off the mirror. Either way works. I attached the mirror to the frame using hot glue. Here's a close-up view. And here are both pieces working together. I think they go quite nicely together. If you enjoyed this project, please give it a thumbs up and please consider subscribing to my channel and let me know if you have something you'd like me to dupe. I love a good challenge. Thanks for watching. This is a 16-inch serving platter from Dollarama. I picked up these laser cut craft sticks at Michael's. They come 100 to a pack. I'm using a 9-inch Dollar Tree mirror. I'm just going to remove the mirror from the frame for painting. I'm going to take the serving platter and I'm going to flip it upside down. So we're going to be using the back of the platter. In order to make sure that the frame is centered on the serving tray, I made some marks at about 3/4 of an inch in. It'll depend on what size your frame is. And I use these marks to judge where I should have the frame so that it's centered. So as you can see, the marks that I made are just slightly outside of the edge of the frame so that you can judge the distance all the way around. I then attached the frame to the back of the serving platter using hot glue. And the reason that I used hot glue for this is because hot glue is not always as adhesive as you want it to be. So I purposely wanted it to be attached well enough to work on, but to be able to be popped off later. Now we're going to use our E6000. And now we are going to add all of our laser cut sticks. First, I split the space in half and then quarters and then split it again and then continue to fill in. I'm attaching these using E6000 so there's time to reposition them and straighten them before the glue dries. Also, it's important to note that I've only used E6000 on the portion of the stick that's attached to the mirror frame and not to the plate. This is so that we'll be able to remove the section later for painting. I've let this dry overnight and then just confirm that all of your laser sticks are firmly attached to the mirror frame and don't have any movement. And now I'm just gonna pop up the edges of the mirror where it's been attached to the plate, and this will allow us to remove the top section from the plate. The reason that I did it this way is so that I could paint these two sections in two different colors for a nice contrast effect. The top section I painted with Rust-Oleum Gold Metallic. The back side of the plate got a coat of flat black. Before adding the mirror into the back of the mirror frame, I'm applying a line of E6000 around the lip of the mirror frame. Next, I put the mirror in place and allow to dry, preferably overnight. Before attaching the outer frame to the plate backing, I'm first going to add a bit of E6000 onto the ends of the laser cut sticks on the wrong side. Also add a generous amount of hot glue onto the back side of the mirror. Then pop it into place. Apply a bit of pressure to the ends of the laser cut sticks. Allow all of the glued surfaces to have time to set up. If you like, at this point, you can just hang that mirror up on the wall and you're done. However, if you're like me and you want to level that mirror up to its blingiest and most fabulous self, then let's keep going. I'm going to be adding some adhesive rhinestones onto the ends of the laser cut sticks. And the center. But because I felt that it needed just a little something more, I also added these strips of glittering crystals that are also adhesive. However, I suggest for longevity that you glue them down so they don't peel off. Once your project is complete, you can either use it as a mirror to hang on the wall, or you can use it as a display stand, like I have here.